The Senior Bowl is underway. Kyle Krabs, boots on the ground. We're getting his takeaways today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys, me and dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate you all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5.
Joe, did somebody say boots on the ground?
Oh, geez. What incredible. What are you doing with those shoes? You planning on going on a nice dinner?
No, you go wear them with your jeans, right?
Jeans?
Yeah, I brought jeans. I've not worn them yet, but just in case. Boots and jeans, yeah. In the South, you got to play the part.
Joggers and sneakers only, but also I'm also almost exclusively a cane shoes guy. So
joggers and sneakers is the play.
I'd be wearing jeans. Kyle, wee woo, by the way, I have announced that I am withdrawing my name from consideration to be the New Orleans Saints head coach. Just add me to the list.
I have an interview at dinner tonight.
Then you'll see. The man Loomis goes and he goes, you'll take the job. All right.
So McCarthy pulled his name out. Latest momentum. It sounded like it was going to be him and Joe Brady were the favorites, and then Joe Brady withdraws, and now McCarthy's withdrawn, and
Kingsbury
declined an in-person interview. They didn't do anything wrong, though.
No.
It's just because they didn't get results didn't mean there was anything wrong with what they did. Kafka/Weaver/Kellen Moore. Who's your pick?
Well, I think you just said the next head coach of the Saints. I think it'll be one of those three. I guess Kellen Moore. I think the reason you have to pick Kellen Moore is because then you can act like you waited to get your guy, because he's in the Super Bowl.
Right. Now they have been kicking the tires on a lot of offensive minds, and I think that's why I'd probably put Weaver lower on the list, despite how well he's reportedly interviewed. It feels like they want an offensive guy for this job.
I'd hire, if it was me making the decision, only because I don't want him to be the defensive coordinator of Miami, I would pick Weaver. I think he falls in lines with the trends of what's kind of hot in the league right now, and I think he's awesome. So
I'd pick Weaver too if Weaver would accept the job.
He might not, man. Or he might not. I mean, he's great. He'll get a job for sure. It's just a matter of time. But if you have options, maybe that's not the one you settle on.
Correct.
Mike Kafka wants it, and you understand why. There's no other opportunity for that guy, right?
Right. You might never get another offer.
All right, Kyle Krabs at the Reese's Senior Bowl, Mobile, Alabama, day one in the books. I'm very excited to talk to you. I haven't had any conversations with you about the practices, and so I'm kind of excited to pick your brain on what you saw down there. And I know I've been there with you a lot of different times, and you always go into a practice with some ideas of what you want to accomplish down there. So kind of curious, what was your approach? What was your objectives to that day one session that happened yesterday?
Yesterday's objective was to follow around the big boys club, which is where I think a lot of the best talent is in this year's class, even after the withdrawals that it kind of came through as a flurry the last 3 or 4 days. What was it? It's the national roster has on their offensive line Josh Connerly, Marcus Mbo, Ariante Ursary, Gray Zabel, Ozzie Trapilo, Wyatt Milam, Jalen Travis from Iowa State, Jonah Monheim from USC, Jalen Rivers from Miami, Caleb Rogers, Texas Tech. Connerly, if I told you top 20, would you be surprised?
Oh,
right. So Ursary, if I told you he was a first-round pick, would you be surprised?
Nope.
Let's see. Gray Zabel was the best player here yesterday.
No, so there's a hot take to get us going here. That's a North Dakota State lineman, right?
Yeah, he played on the inside. So he played guard and center after being a college left tackle. And I don't know what magic dust they have for these North Dakota State kids that play tackle and come down here and
right
inside and dominate. Yeah. But he's the latest one to do that after Cody Mauch did that not that long ago. So this is a really, really good group from top to bottom. And even the guys that I would put towards the lower end of like that hierarchy of talent, like Travis and Rivers, those guys had good days and they got reps at multiple spots. So they did not disappoint. I followed that group around very closely. And, you know, there's maybe not as much top end talent with that group that what you would get really excited about for your first round mock draft. But names that are on day 2 and have all different kinds of body types and skill sets, like this has it. And it was really good to watch.
So what's the offensive lineman standing out on day 1 is not normal. Normally it takes them a couple of days to get going. Yeah. So I'm a little surprised that that's kind of your prevailing thought. Obviously you said that was your top objective, but these guys are going out there and performing well. I think that says a lot about the offensive line class. And you've been kind of telling me for a while that the depth of the offensive line class is really, really strong. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this is certainly aligning with that. You mentioned this North Dakota State offensive lineman is the best player you saw yesterday. Like, can you get us a little bit more acquainted with him? I'd like to know more.
Yeah. So Gray Zabel came in a little lighter than I thought he would play. He's around 305, and he's got sub 33s for arms. And I think you watched him in his movement skills, and you recognized on tape at North Dakota State that he was probably going to be an inside guy, just based off the movement skills. He has this really good displacement ability in the run game, and he was really effective at the SCS level from a pass protection standpoint. But I think you saw some of the length and the foot speed stuff with him on the edge. And it kind of affirmed all of that. But it was the ability to step in at center and just lock guys up. So he's that right blend of like boxy build and dense frame with like the gritty play style demeanor to finish through plays and second level reactionary recovery ability that he has. He's got a really outstanding center of gravity, and he plays with leverage, and, you know, it all just made this perfect combination of didn't really matter what style of rush you tried to give him with the guys that he went against. He handled it.
Well, small school offensive linemen standing out at the Senior Bowl, boy, tradition like no other. That's what's so great about the event is you get to see that and, you know, going up against the best of the best. So I'm excited to check him out. And coming up on the other side of it, my lead question for Kyle is going to be which players he saw at practice to start the week has him eager to go back to the tape and kind of check on some stuff. We'll get to that and more here on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where one of the starting quarterbacks only needs to throw for 1 yard to win. You pair that with one more correct pick, and you are cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board. I'm selecting more on Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for Patrick Mahomes passing yardage. What I love most, it's fast, safe, and secure withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Also, check out the promos tab to tell any of their super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tell a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
All right, Joe, what do you want to know?
Well, the question's very simple. Who has you ready to go back to the tape? Whether it was a player that you hadn't seen that popped, that has you interested, or maybe a player that you have assessed that maybe you saw something different that has you eager to maybe check your work a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to try to answer this question while keeping in mind the other things that we said we were going to talk about. So don't let me go too long here.
All right.
But I have been Darius Alexander pilled. This is a Toledo defensive tackle. Okay. And if you want to know what Darius Alexander is when he's at his best, watch the bowl game against Pittsburgh. There's sacks, there's pressure, there's a 58-yard interception return for a touchdown in which he hurdles a tackle attempt after dropping off in a shallow hook to take away an underneath area at 3 passes defense this year. So 6'0", 304 verified with 34-inch arms. And he dump trucks people. And he had big-time power rushes here. He physically looks that part. He has that first step, and he obviously has length. It's consistency stuff for him. Now, he's a sixth-year senior, too. There's a couple of six-year senior here. But the context that I found a little bit more optimism when I was doing some bio background on him, as far as like why there's consistency issues and reconciling some of that. He was an offensive tackle in 2019 for his freshman season. And then he converted over the defensive side of the ball. Now he played defense in high school, but like that's a full year potentially plus of time invested at not the position you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing him out here and the disruptive nature and the frame and the length, Jim Nagy's been trying to tell us for months, because you do the tweet search on Jim Nagy with Darius Alexander, and he's been gassing him up as maybe like the highest drafted group of 4 prospect in this year's class.
Wow.
I'm buying. Like you get it when you see him in person. He looks awesome. And I'm in the process of doing his film evaluation and the write-up now. But I was not in the dark, but had not done anything remotely close to a deep dive coming into the league.
Oh, wow. Another defensive tackle.
Brother, I texted Travis Wingfield, who I'm a good friend with, who works for the Dolphins, and he's the former host of Locked On Dolphins. And one of the things that we've talked about is there are some teams that feel like they do a very good job of like having that 2-year snapshot for where they need players, and like in a year in advance, knowing like who you have on short-term contracts and where there's really good draft classes behind it to maybe attack that. And we talked about how they did that this year with safety when they have one player under contract for safety, but they're going to have a lot of options because it's a good safety class. The amount of interior defensive linemen that I have top 100 grades on right now, and I'm not even done like all the fringe guys. It's double digits. Like it is.
We haven't seen this in a long time, dude. Tackles. We've been needing this.
Yes.
Well, that's exciting.
So that's one. And then Anthony Belton's the other one from NC State. Offensive tackle.
Woo! Offensive tackle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All 345 pounds of him.
Can he move?
Yes.
Does he have length?
34-inch arms verified.
Okay.
34 and 5/8 inch arms.
Oh, we're pushing 35s.
At 345, and he got reps at guard and tackle and looked really good. And obviously his best traits are what he does in the run game.
All right.
People tell you it's back class, though. It's back class.
What about, so those are players that kind of has you eager to check the tape. What about body types? So that's a huge part of scouting that maybe gets a little uncomfortable for people, but are there any body types that you look at and say, okay, that's first off the bus type player, like engineered to do the thing in the NFL?
Yeah, I think the 2 names that I just mentioned are ones that are prototype type of builds. But if I look beyond that, and please don't mind me, I'm just looking down here at the rosters, so I see names that come to me, and I don't forget a bunch of people. Xavier Restrepo not tall, but at 200 pounds is built like a running back. And I really like to see that from both him and Elijah Arroyo, who weighed in over 250 pounds, which is like a big deal for him. And Arroyo was one of the best route runners out here. But those guys looked like very physically complete builds for their respective positions.
Let me stop you. Restrepo's a receiver from Miami.
Yes, and Arroyo's a tight end for Miami.
Okay.
So a couple of Miami skill players. Now, Ariante Ursary at offensive tackle.
Yeah.
You know what you're getting there as far as when you see him, what you expect with his play style. But he had one of the most complete days, I thought, of all the offensive tackle group for really handling the different kinds of pass rush threats that this Senior Bowl roster can afford, because it's got Mike Green and Donovan Izaraku as two guys and both those guys are over 250. They looked bigger than I think I expected them to as well. But then there's also like a power player in Landon Jackson from Arkansas, and Oladejo, the edge from UCLA, is a player I don't know a lot about either, but he was one of those. Every year you get down there and there's those couple of like Spitfire energy balls.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
He's like really gassing himself and his teammates up and just very like vocal and comfortable and high energy. And it's like, yeah, man, like that's the guy that when you were in high school and you had the 6 a.m. lift was going to get you going a little bit, right?
Like, juice, yeah.
Yeah, the infectious enthusiasm about being there. And he's a prototype type build too. Like he looks like a first off the bus edge defender at the NFL level. So this is all national roster. If I went to the American roster, obviously Shamar Stewart, who came in at 280. And
6'7", probably.
They asked him what his favorite rep was today. He said the rep against 52, which is Brown, the tackle from Kansas. And he said, I told 52 I was going to run through his face, and then I ran through his face. And he bull rushed him, and I think I have a picture of it. Let's see if you can see this. He bull rushed him on the rep, and he literally sat down the offensive tackle.
He didn't even flat back. He just sat down, huh?
He just sat him down on a bull rush, speed to power bull rush. So Stewart definitely checks that box as well.
How about, so that's body types that stood out to you. How about just like movement skills? That's one of my favorite things about being there is you get to see all the players together, and then the ones that just have a different level about how they can move. It stands out. Who were those players for you?
Yeah, so Elijah Arroyo at tight end, probably arguably ran routes as good as the wide receivers did at 250. And that's, you watched his profile at Miami and you knew he was a really fluid, top of the route type of player. And he's built like Kyle Pitts. So, I mean, like you get that with fluidity and speed up the seam. And that's the kind of player that obviously will stand out. I thought Mike Green, especially at the bigger weight, moved at a level of change of direction and fluidity, and he gets to the top of the arc, and then he turns the tight corner, and it's just the geometry of which he plays the game is a little different because of his movement skills in tight spaces like that. If I was going to shout out a couple more players, Mason Taylor at tight end, I thought was another guy that moved very comfortably. I thought Trevor Etienne was comfortably the best back on the American roster. And I want to shout out a wide receiver, but I would probably shout out. So let me go back to body types, because the player who moves different from a speed perspective is Tez Johnson. Tez Johnson weighed in 155 pounds. Like,
get a Penny Hart this thing, you know?
Right. You're Tutu Atwell territory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And Tutu Atwell, second round pick, obviously very ambitious. And what did the Rams do after that pick, right? They went the exact opposite direction, and that's where they found their hits.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I am very leery of a player like that because people will point to the Tank Dell comparison as a player that came through here, but I think Dell was a significantly better route runner. But straight line speed perspective, this dude will blow the doors off you, as he should at 155 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll gouge you until you catch him, type thing, right? But that was a body type that checks a body type box in not the way that you would typically like, but then it, from a movement skills perspective, like, he has the absolute gas. I think he's probably the most explosive player here.
All right, we got more to get to. I want to ask Kyle about quarterbacks. We got to get some early impressions there and maybe some players that he's hoping to see a little bit more from today, folks. Be sure to stick with us. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so that you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, that you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live full service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
We have to.
Yeah, we have to, man. I mean, we don't have to spend a million years, but quarterbacks, man. We made 20 minutes. We didn't talk about quarterbacks. I got to ask a question.
Don't draft any of them.
I mean, you got Milroe and Dart and these guys. Nothing popping at all.
So Milroe, I'm actually not surprised we didn't pick up on this, because one of the well-documented points of data for the draft dudes is Joe Marino's hand size. Did you see? I saw
8 and something, right?
8 3/4.
8 3. He's got me by a half inch, but yeah, I hear you.
Jalen Milroe, we're talking about.
Yeah, quarterback element.
Who we met a few years ago, and Joe spent 3 hours talking ball with, and
forgot to measure his hands.
Forgot to measure his hand size out there. He had a couple frustrating misses with some one-on-ones, and the kind of misses that's like not, oh, you weren't on the same page as far as where the catch point was going to be for a receiver, like, oh, he one-hopped it type things.
Oh, man.
Right. So that exists. Jackson Dart was fine. He was the one, it felt like everybody was getting ready to gear up and gas up coming into this week and talk about the traits and how he can move and how he's got a big arm. I thought he threw the ball fine, but I also, you remember, what was it, 2018 class? The Baker, Josh Allen class, or the 2020 class with Herbert and Jordan Love. Mm-hmm. And like, you watched them throw the ball and you were just like, okay, yeah, like,
different.
These guys have big league arms, right? Yeah. I don't think any of these guys had that. So you're just looking, I guess, at this point for who improves throughout the course of the week the most. I think that's probably where I'm most focused for the quarterbacks, but I didn't think it like, and the second practice, the American practice, I don't know what the gentleman's agreement is that you're not allowed to have 2 highly competitive practices on the same day.
Yeah, I saw some of that commentary. Yeah.
Brother. It was not Charlie Weiss 2014 Shrine Bowl bad, and that's a niche joke for like 15 of the listeners of this program, but if you were there, you get it, where I don't think they did anything of value at all. They did stretch, special teams, and walkthroughs. And that was it for 2 hours. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like that. But I was down on the field for the first practice, and I went up in between second practice, said, okay, when they're done like the install, the walkthrough, the stretch type stuff, I'll go back down for the second practice. I looked down, I was sitting up in the bleachers for like an hour. I'm like, when are the things going to start? You got probably 20 minutes of tangible evaluation reps in the second practice. which is a bummer. But so from a quarterback perspective, that obviously limits how many valuable reps you have in that second group, which was the Milroe Dart group. But the first group, Tyler Shuck probably threw the ball the best. But I think if you're getting any level of expectation that you're going to start from any of these guys right now, like early on in their careers, you're probably doing it wrong.
All right, so I guess transitioning into players that you're hoping to see more from, I guess quarterbacks probably is a pretty all-encompassing answer. What about maybe some of the other guys that did more competitive things that were interesting, that whether it's, improving from a rough day or you want to see them build upon something? Who are those players that you're eager to get eyes on today?
Yeah, so I'm watching Marcus and Bo a little bit.
Purdue?
Yeah, the Purdue, he was right tackle. He played right tackle for them. The conversation around him was he was a guy who used to be a lot bigger in like high school and dropped the weight, and he came in at 309 at the Senior Bowl. But just from like a muscle mass distribution style, he didn't have the kind of build that I guess I was hoping he would have to match his play style. When he gets to play aggressive, he can be very aggressive and very impactful and has a lot of quick twitch explosiveness to his game. But when he has to find like that, shift it to a lower gear and uproot kind of power, I didn't really see a lot of that. And then you see his body type, and it's not surprising that that's not a club in his bag right now. And I want to see if they're going to give him any opportunities at center. I think he'd be a killer center just because the functional strength's not there, but the quick twitch and the range and the open field athleticism is outstanding on tape. So I'm kind of hoping we'll get a chance to see them move Marcus and Bo around a little bit. I obviously want to see Gray Zabel build off the day that he had yesterday to kind of put the exclamation point on what he is. Want to see more from TJ Sanders. He had an outstanding speed to power rush against Garrett Dellinger from LSU and ran right through him and did this, the Shamar Stewart thing where he just sat Dellinger down flat on his back. But he came in a little lighter than I thought he would at 284, I believe is what he weighed in at. So want to get more opportunities to see him do point of attack work, particularly in team, get a feel for that. And that's probably, I should shout out Baron Sorrell from Texas as well, another edge defender who looks good and had a good first day. He kind of goes back into that like run back to the tape type bucket. Because Texas has been so renowned for their interior defensive linemen, and I know he's been a successful player there, but I've never like invested that full sit down watch to him. So if he has another good day today, that'll probably be tomorrow's run back home and watch the tape players would be Baron Sorrell from Texas.
Well, outstanding, Kyle Krabs. Thank you for your insight today on this episode. And excited to pick your brain for what you learned today. Actually, I had some questions that I had to holster we didn't get to, so we got plenty more discussions coming here. Good
content, right? So you could text me if you need to, and I'll answer your questions off air if you need me to.
Yeah, well, that's very kind of you.
We'll go from there. So I'm leaving in about 50 minutes to head over to the stadium and get ready for practice today, and we'll be there for 5 hours or so, and hopefully I don't get as sunburned as I did yesterday. I don't know if you could tell.
Yeah, I was wondering a little bit, but it's not terrible.
It's the Mobile tan that you get out in the bleachers or down on the turf. And
dude, you have no idea if you're going to freeze, if you're going to cook, if you're going to be in a monsoon, you know?
I do need to check the weather. I hope it's not supposed to rain today, but it started cold and then got hot. It started in the 30s, I think, and then got up into the high 50s.
Yeah, but it's been like that here too. It's just you wake up, it's freezing, and then by midday you're like, I can go for a walk. So I got a really important question. What the heck is in that picture behind you? I've been looking at it for two shows.
A zebra
with a hat on. What is going on here?
I'm not sure what it's wearing.
All right. All right.
The art in here this is lovely. I'm at the Admiral in downtown Mobile, and it's got a very like bayou color scheme with like there's a purple bed runner here and a lot of gold on the walls. And then
people don't know about the Mardi Gras scene in Mobile.
Right.
Yeah,
they'll tell you that's where it started. The whole thing started in Mobile, not Louisiana.
I've heard it, bro. Well, you never know when there's going to be a singing tribe coming through your restaurant when you're just trying to sit there and eat, man. It's happened a few times.
None of that so far. Although I have not gone to the sandwich shop that we were at for that.
Right, well.
Do you remember the haunted bookstore?
Yes.
I believe it's closed.
I'm unsurprised.
Yeah. A lot of abstract art on the walls here. So I could give you the MTV Cribs tour tomorrow if you guys want. But that's going to do it for us here today on the show. Kyle Krabs, Joe Marino, appreciate you guys as always for checking out Locked On NFL Scouting. Senior Bowl Day 2 practice analysis coming your way tomorrow. We hope to see you then.